Hello and welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul, and Justin believes that someone during NHL training camp will sneak out via the laundry chute to go out and party in downtown Toronto. We should have found a more boring city. Maybe somewhere in Nunavut. They have a couple rinks up there.
Listen, put them in Quebec because everybody's been hammering for teams there, so... Let's just put them in there.
There you go. Nothing to do in Quebec at all. No trouble to get into in Quebec. We are excited because there's actual hockey things to talk about with training camp going through its first week. And, for the most part, things have been pretty darn good. There hasn't been too many, I think a lot of people were worried that, we'd get to this point and within a few days you'd see guys testing positive left and right because they were out doing stupid things. I think so far, so good. We won't know until, I guess, sometime, probably more likely like 7 to 10 days after this all begins is when, if we're going to see some cases creep in, it would be that point. There are so many storylines going on, and so we just decided, hey, let's do a little bit of a top 5 things you're most excited for, things that are happening in the league right now. We've got awards that have been the finalists that have been handed out. We've got flooding in Rogers Place in Edmonton. So many things happening. And Justin, what is the first thing on your list that just piques your interest right now?
Yeah, to me, it's the battle at these training camps right now is what I'm most excited to see. And we talk about it, right? Some of the younger guys, I know Toronto's got a ton of younger players vying for some of these bottom 6 spots. Goaltenders, obviously, we've got the battle with the Rangers. Is it going to be the Lundqvist? Is it going to be, Gorgiev? Obviously not, but... or you look at Vegas and you got guys like, Robin Lehner, who maybe some people are like, yeah, let's give this guy a shot because, we might need him long term now because Marc-Andre Fleury's getting up there, didn't have the best regular seasons, or are we still going with the Flower? So some of these battles are going to be super interesting to me, and I'm excited to see how they kind of play out moving forward for sure.
Yeah. The battles in training camp are usually that is the reason we love to just watch training camp kind of play itself out. I thought it was pretty interesting how the Leafs early on were having actual referees in their scrimmage, and then the league told them that they couldn't do it anymore. Right. I'm sure some other teams complained and said, it's Toronto, they get to have refs, and where are we going to get refs in Florida? Something. I don't know. And not that there's not other hockey guys you could just stick in a referee uniform,
right. You can go to the local roller arena and get some roller
I guess
guys.
To me, I would say, because they talked about the reason they wanted to have it there was running your power play. If there's a linesman and a referee, that is something additional to watch out for, and if you don't practice with them there, then you get used to them not being there. Well, I think what I would do is I'd say, great, you coach, put on a referee uniform and go stand over there.
That's a good solution.
You don't have to use
actual
referees. You can use anybody. That's probably what I'd be doing.
Okay. Yeah. That's not a bad idea. And again, I don't know if maybe the NHL, I don't know all the fine details, but maybe they have a limit to the number of skaters on the ice. But
they said that it was just like additional people that were allowed in the training area, and so they didn't want it. So that's why I'm saying, you just use a coach instead, you could still do the same.
There you go. Problem solved.
The Edmonton Oilers arena, it was Rogers Place, floods, but is structurally sound according to the NHL. They apparently say that nothing is going to hold them back from starting games. I feel like it's just like a 2020 thing. Why wouldn't the arena flood 12 days before you're supposed to host the first exhibition game?
Right. We've got murder hornets. I'm finding out that there's squirrels with the bubonic plague now in Colorado. It's why not? Let's just have some other weird shit happen.
Let's flood the arena, the only arena we're going to play in. I guess in terms of training camp controversy, I don't think there's anything more controversial than what's happening with Johnny Gaudreau in Calgary.
Okay.
So if you've heard or seen, Johnny Gaudreau hasn't been playing with his regular line mates. There's been a lot of talk that Gaudreau came to camp and that he wasn't in shape, and that's why he wasn't playing with the guys that he's normally paired up with Monahan. And of course, Brad Treliving comes out. He says, nope, that's not the reason why we're disciplining him. But it is a discipline thing, because he says he's in tip-top shape. He worked out during the pause, and this is just one of those things, and will all be established in a better sense in the next couple of days. As for why he's not skating with the main group and his usual line mates, the Calgary Flames aren't willing to go there, at least not yet. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean,
we still don't totally know why this is going on, and who knows? Maybe by the time you're listening to this, we do find out exactly why. But Johnny Gaudreau had a really kind of a tough season, anyways, and here he finds himself kind of playing with the scrubs of the team as they split everybody up, and it just seems. I just want to know. I want to know what's going on with Johnny Gaudreau. Because the Flames, if Johnny Gaudreau isn't ready to go, or if something is, it truly is wrong, then the Flames' chances against the Winnipeg Jets plummet.
Yeah, he's got to be the guy that stirs that drink there. Obviously, Sean Monahan, he's not as gifted offensively as a guy like Gaudreau isn't. And the quote was, "I'm totally ecstatic with where Johnny Gaudreau is right now." And if you're totally ecstatic, why don't you just come out and say, okay, well, we're just, he didn't have the best regular season, so we want to try him with some other guys, or we want to try our top line guys, get them some chemistry going with some other guys or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't just say like, oh, we're putting him with the scrubs it's internal. Like,
we'll tell you guys later.
Just shut up and tell us. Like, get it over with, because we're going to, the media is going to keep bugging you about this. And it's like, what's the point of even hiding something like that at this point?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. The Flames are hopefully at full strength with Johnny Gaudreau once everything starts. I think another storyline that to me is what makes this training camp and what makes this return to play so exciting is the fact that you have not just guys who were actually injured and completely out of it, and now all of a sudden they find themselves in a position where they're fully healed from what would have caused them to miss some or all of the playoffs. But you also get the guys like John Tavares, who was injured all year almost, played, but had this aggravating injury, and now he's 100%. You've got Sidney Crosby, who's had a chance to get himself sorted out. You have so many superstar players across the league who had maybe some hampering injuries that now they're coming into a training camp, and it's like the beginning of the regular season. Everyone's 100% healthy. Here we go, and we're jumping right into the playoffs.
Yeah, 4-month break, and that gives. For most guys, you're going to get healthy at that point, unless you have like some really, really bad injuries, which I don't think there really were too many of those. So yeah, that's exciting to see, and I loved it because obviously now, like, during the regular season, when you get guys that get injured, right, you're scrambling, you're putting together new lines, new combinations. Yeah. Like, let's try this winger with, Connor McDavid, see if we can't get something working. That's kind of how, you figured out in Edmonton, for example, when McDavid went down and Draisaitl turned in to be the guy there for a little stretch. You found out Yamamoto, right, paired so well with him, and he was a point per game guy on Draisaitl's wing. So you figure out things like that, and it's like, now everybody's healthy. So what are you going to do with your line combos now? What are you going to, how are you going to pair guys? You get a fresh start to put the guys that you ideally wanted to, maybe with these guys. And Toronto, for example, I expected Tavares and Marner to play most of the season together, and that really hasn't panned out since Sheldon Keefe took over. And
Tavares wasn't totally healthy even after coming back.
Yeah. So maybe that changes now, and maybe Marner goes back with Tavares, or maybe Nylander sticks down there, and who knows?
Yeah, I'd say that the most interesting thing when it comes to the injuries that you could have had are from a goaltending perspective. Goaltenders, we often don't know exactly what's going on with a goalie. We can look at his numbers and all this. Oh, he seems like he's struggling, or it looks like maybe he has a groin thing. And a goalie will just struggle with a groin thing for 45 games, or it'll never go away until they take a significant amount of time off. And I'm wondering if goalies don't come back and have a huge increase in their abilities because they're totally healthy. Often we see it like, okay, this guy played 60 regular season games, 50 regular season games. Like, what's the ideal number for a goalie to play? Well, guess what? Every single goalie coming in the playoffs has now played the ideal number.
Right.
So, where we think this first round could be almost like a full-on shootout because defenses aren't going to be probably clicking as well as it is to be easy to just jump right in and be creative and be offensive and use your speed to create offense. I'm wondering if once we get outside of this first round craziness of a 5-game series, if goaltenders don't completely take over because they're fully rested and healthy and ready to roll. Like maybe especially the guys who get 3 to 5 games as their warm up in this preliminary round and go into the rest of it. I would expect that the one difficult part, and something that I'm sure will get talked about more as we move into the playoffs, will be for those top 4 teams who haven't really gotten a lot of competition. I know they're going to go and they're going to play their little exhibition games against the other top 4 teams in the conference, but it's not going to be the same as what other teams are experiencing in an actual series where if they lose, they're out. And I think those goaltenders are going to get sharp real quick, and it might be a little harder for the goalies of those top 4 teams to be in that perfect mindset. But nevertheless, I really think once we get past the preliminary rounds, healthy goalies across the board is going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, that'll definitely be interesting. I think when you talk about like those top 4 teams, right, you're not going to play Stamkos 20 minutes a game. You're not going to see Braden play 20 minutes. So they're going to see less time against these superstars. And then not only that, but I think these clubs, in the top 4 are going to rotate their guys. Because like, for instance, Dallas, right, obviously Ben Bishop's the man, but you're going to probably see Khudobin in there one game just to get a little bit of action, right? And same goes with, McElhinney in Tampa Bay or, Halak in Boston. They're going to get a game in there probably,
right?
Just to get their feet wet. But, on the flip side, I think when you talk about goaltenders, I wonder, because there are some goaltenders, if they're not playing a ton, if they're not, going hard for a certain period because of this giant layoff, even though they might be healthy, if they try to go in, and especially with these goaltenders in those 5-game series with the play-in rounds, they go in cold, and now they're pushed hard really, really fast.
Yeah, that's true.
Could they get an injury? And I don't think we'll see it as much because I think, a lot of these guys will get, have probably been working out, have been staying fit and active, and then they'll obviously get a little bit of time in training camp, which will be nice. But, yeah, I do think, what will happen if we do see that one odd team that does get a goaltender who goes down because he's been, cold or hasn't been as hard. And for instance, like the Florida Panthers, right? If Bobrovsky goes down with an injury real fast, they're in big trouble.
Sure.
Like, obviously, they're not completely relying on him because that's not how they got into the position they were this year. But, obviously they want him to be the guy. And
they're in the position they were because they're lucky as frick that everyone got in.
Right. And then on the flip side too, right? A team like Montreal, if Carey Price isn't healthy or if he gets injured, they're just put an X on him. They're done. So,
and apparently Carey Price is at the top of his game right now.
Yeah, loving his solid red pads too. I mean, he got some new gear, and it's looking real nice for me.
Yeah, that'll be. I mean, that is the hope for some of these bottom, lower seed teams is their goaltending situation. I mean, the only chance Montreal has against Pittsburgh is if Carey Price can pull off a Yaroslav Halak.
Sure.
Like, he needs to have probably the greatest 5 games of his career.
Yeah, probably.
in order for them to beat the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Right. We talk about healthy guys. You know,
especially like I know that there's like Max Domi has I don't know written in somewhere, or he said, you know, I'm willing to give it 7 to 10 days, see where we're at, and then he's going to make his final decision as to whether or not he'll play, because he has diabetes and he's
right.
You know, obviously a little bit more at risk because of that. But it'll be interesting. Like if Max Domi doesn't play, that would be a huge loss for the Habs, and hopefully we just, you know, everything's smooth and everybody does what they should do right here,
follows the rules,
so that we can all have you know, nobody's going through the laundry chutes.
I really hope someone tries
an escape from prison. Once they're all in the bubble, you're just gonna have like a back door that's left unlocked by the janitor who took a bribe from Austin Matthews so that they can all go out and party.
You know what might actually happen, just the opposite, is it wouldn't shock me if, especially in Toronto with the media there as crazy as they are, is if someone tries to sneak in to like a hotel or something to talk with some of these players. I could see that too. Speaking of Austin Matthews, we do have some award finalists, and one of those is for the Lady Bing, which is Nathan McKinnon, Austin Matthews, and Ryan O'Reilly. So, interestingly enough, the most gentlemanly player in the National Hockey League. Only one of those three players wasn't charged for a crime in the last year. Wow. I'm glad you said that.
This seems kind of weird. I know it's gentlemanly play on the ice, but you know, maybe a couple of those guys aren't exactly gentlemen. Nevertheless, speaking towards just on the ice performance, who do you think takes that trophy? Who do you think takes the Lady Bing? I really think that it is kind of the Lady Bing to me is that you weren't quite good enough to win the Hart Trophy or any other trophy. You know, you didn't have the season that some other guys had, but we'd like to recognize you. So here's the Lady Bing because you didn't get a lot of penalty minutes.
Yeah.
And maybe you didn't have a lot of penalty minutes. That's really it. Were you good and didn't have a lot of penalty minutes?
Yeah, I mean, you got McKinnon with 12, Matthews with 8, and boy, you know, I think between those two guys, I think McKinnon probably gets it. Just because, again, like you talk about, it's like the consolation prize for the Hart Trophy, right? And I think really for me the Hart Trophy boils down to Draisaitl and Panarin, because we know what Panarin's meant to his team, and you know, McKinnon, you could easily say the same for what he's meant to Colorado, especially the point difference between him and the next closest guy in that team. Yeah. But I think because obviously I think the award's probably going to go to Draisaitl, I think McKinnon's like the guy they're just going to say, okay, well, let's just give him this then.
Yeah, see, I wonder, like, Ryan O'Reilly, I think, is up for this. I mean, the guy never gets penalty minutes anyways.
No. And he plays so hard, which is crazy to me.
Yeah. You would not think, like, looking at him and looking how he plays, you wouldn't think that he would be somebody who would have, like, 4 penalty
minutes,
yeah.
But still, yeah.
I think, I don't remember what year he had 4 penalty minutes. Yeah, you wouldn't think that he would be that type of guy, but I think that this is a nod to, hey, you won the Conn Smythe Trophy, you're a great player, and we're recognizing that now. We're finally putting you into the conversation for this now.
Yeah. By the way, it's 17-18 in Buffalo, 2 penalty minutes, 81 games. Gosh, it was 14-15 with Colorado, 82 games, 2 penalty minutes. I mean, he starts his career off. I'm sorry, that was wrong. I read that wrong. 13-14, not 17-18. I'm sorry. Yeah, but still 2 penalty minutes, and then 17-18, 2 penalty minutes, and 12-13, 4 penalty minutes. I mean, the guy just doesn't get them.
How do you play 82 games and only take 1 penalty? And be like, hey, a guy who could be in the conversation for Selke and could be in conversation. Like, it's he plays a fantastic game. It's really cool to watch. Who wouldn't want to have him on their team? Yeah,
Buffalo's kicking themselves. Let's take Patrick Berglund. This will work out well.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, yeah. Great idea. Buffalo's a great place to play. Obviously, everyone is clamoring to go play in Buffalo. Yes. So you think McKinnon wins it. I think that McKinnon will probably win the Hart because of where his team ultimately finished, and
he's got more of a Taylor Hall vibe
that were around him.
Sure.
I think that McKinnon probably takes it, and everybody wants to give Colorado some love, based off last year.
I do think
I think Austin Matthews actually might win the Lady Byng.
Okay. I do think, though, the one downside for Draisaitl is he's going to have a lot of people that want to give it to McDavid, and so that might pull a couple votes. Yeah. So, I could see McKinnon getting it because of that.
Austin Matthews is going to get the vote of probably most Toronto guys. I know that I've seen some people release their list, and Matthews isn't even in the top, 10, but that's because... they some of these writers have a proclivity to say, well, I would never put him in a gentlemanly award because he moons somebody. Raise your hand right now if you're listening to this if you've ever mooned someone before.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I remember.
My hand's up.
Yep, same.
I could never win the Lady Byng because I took way too many penalty minutes when I played anyways, but now I'm definitely not going to win the Lady Byng.
You did take a few. Even I took a few playing a goalie, man.
Dude, sometimes you just got to slash a guy's leg.
Yeah, I did. I used to always...
As a goalie, you took more penalty minutes than Ryan O'Reilly.
I did. I actually would have, whenever guys would stand in front of the net, as long as they had, that back foot, pointed further to... I would always just poke at it a little bit and see if I can't get him
Give
to
him a little slide.
Yeah. But I remember one time I was playing a show, I think in Grand Rapids, and me and our bass player were driving back from this, the show, and he pulls his pants down in the passenger seat of my truck. We got the gear in the back, and he just moons, the other convoy, the other car, and then the sirens come on. We get pulled over by the cops. I'm like, no, yes. I'm not getting it. He got a ticket for just not wearing a safety belt. That was it. I was kind of surprised we didn't get in a little bit more trouble for those shenanigans.
Did they know that he had mooned them?
They didn't have a clue.
He just saw him standing up in the car.
Yeah.
Whew, that's a good thing. Don't want to get on any offenders list out there because of some stupid thing like that. So we have also other trophies. The Vezina Trophy. Connor Hellebuck, Vasilevsky, and Rask named Vezina Trophy finalists. I think we figured that those would be the three that got it. Who do you think ultimately wins it? You're still probably pretty high on Hellebuck.
Yeah, because again, I think Boston, we know how good they were as a team, and I think what Hellebuck was able to do, he had more games this season where I think that he willed them to win, or he won games for them, for the Winnipeg Jets, because of, again, they lost their entire D core. Right? Trouba, Bufflin, it's all gone. And, obviously as a team, they're not as strong as when you look at a team like, Boston. You could say, okay, great, they've got great systems, they've got great forwards, defensemen, everything's there, and Rask is reaping the benefits. But no knock on Tuukka Rask. If he wins it, I'm not upset about it. He definitely had a fantastic season. But to me, I think Hellebuck meant more and did more for his team.
Yeah, and Hellebuck played more games. He had nobody behind him, really. Laurent Brossoit. Hellebuck is, I think, the guy who deserves to win this award, which would be, it's the second time he's nominated in 3 years, and I think it'd be huge. Yeah,
Rask has got one, so let's give the kid one now.
There you go. What other things are happening in the National Hockey League that make you excited for return to play, or what other stories do you have on there?
The only other thing that I really interested to hear, and you and I kind of talked about it a little bit before we got going in the show, but it's to see what happens, how the NHL responds if we get, a couple weeks in the training camp here, if we get, into this playing round and guys start getting COVID, right? Mm-hmm. We start hearing more and more players. Obviously, I think they're not disclosing the names, and they're going to call it unfit to play or whatever it is that they're going to classify them as, but or they'll maybe start calling it an upper body injury, whatever.
An upper respiratory injury.
Yeah, but to me, it'll be interesting to see, because I think the NHL has done so well at organizing, these phase 1s, phase 2, these strategies that they've worked so close with all these players with to just really make sure things are as good as they can possibly get, right? And I've listened to a lot of interviews where all these, these media guys from, Toronto, Florida, the NHL execs, I've, listened to them come on, and they all believe this is about as good as they're going to get it. And I believe they've done just such a fantastic job making sure things are as safe as possible for the players, the coaches, the staff that's involved, the media people that get to come. And it'll be interesting to see what happens if we do get, not necessarily a spike, but we do see kind of, a few, cases pop up, how the NHL handles it.
Yeah. And I think it'll depend too. Do we get these spikes when all the players are in their bubble? Or is it when, beforehand? My guess is that it's beforehand, and you're going to...
I would think so.
...hold players back. But, yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful that guys are just doing their best to avoid any contact. Because, I mean, really for the vast... And I... Like Austin Matthews talked about it. He got COVID-19, and he continued to train at the high level that he was training at because... he's asymptomatic, and most people, especially these guys, are going to be asymptomatic. And I know that all it takes is for one guy for that not to be the case, for this to become a story of irresponsibility. But when there's so many guys who are, well, yeah, I tested positive, but I'm completely fine. It does, I guess, it makes you go, okay, these guys are the best in shape people, probably the least likely to be affected by this because of the conditioning that they're in, because of the food that they have access to. And not that everybody eats super well, but they do definitely have access to really good nutritionists and the way that you can eat where your immune system is strong. I'm hoping that because of that we, that we can just avoid a lot of the little extracurriculars with it. Guys somebody's probably going to get it. And it's just a matter of how bad it is if they get it. Like if somebody gets it and it like in 1919, I know that's 100 years ago, but if somebody gets COVID-19 and God forbid a player dies, it's all over.
Right.
Like if anyone dies, it's all over. Like this is not going to go on. But again, my hunch is that these guys they're young. They're really the chances, I think, are so slim. Not to mention the fact that they're being tested all the time.
They've got the best medical staff too.
They have constant evaluation. I'm pretty confident that no one's going to die, but to me it's the fact that these should be the strongest immune systems, at least percentage wise across the board, that much stronger than most people, and definitely much stronger lungs and heart than the average person who's been sitting around for the last 4 months because we can't afford to have a huge home gym or some special private place that we can go where and continue to train. So
yeah, let's hope so. And I think it'll be good. So yeah.
One last thing, the thing that I have been most surprised with in the last 3 months.
Lay it on me.
The fact that there was hardly any hoo-ha about the league and the players agreeing to 4 to 6 years of peace is something that I just can still not wrap my head around.
Yeah, that's been quiet.
How do we missed half a year 2 times. We missed a full season once. And that's over the last 25 years that there's been this constant disagreement between the players and the owners. And here we go. What do you know? All we needed was a life-threatening pandemic to make people put everything into perspective and have these guys go, all right, yeah, we'll play nice. We'll just basically continue what we've already been doing. Sure, you can go to the Olympics, no problem. Everything just seemed to kind of fall into place. And I know that they didn't necessarily have the same type of agreement via the players. It wasn't a 99% of the players agreeing to it, but I mean, they've agreed to everything up to this point, and the CBA is signed, and it was just like, oh, okay, the CBA is signed. I'm not used to it.
Yeah, it's strange, and I can't remember where it was that I read, but there was one guy who was an executive in the NHL, and he was working with the NHLPA throughout this, and he said there was the chance that they were talking about next year's cap like dropping $8 million. And that's part of the reason why they wanted to basically go after this CBA extension, so they could agree to do a flat cap, so that way they can hopefully, over the next couple of years, make the earnings back that they're missing out this year. And instead of having to slowly, build that cap,
instead of dropping and then coming back up, they can just stay where we're at.
Just stay where we're at. And it's crazy because you think about a lot of these teams, right? And you and I have talked about it on multiple occasions, where just, they're already strapped for cash as it is. And if are we going to go back to that original lockout where player salaries got decreased, right? But
that's what I thought was going to happen.
Right.
That everyone was going to especially because of COVID, because of the economy. And
sure,
I thought that for sure everyone was going to take a 10% or a 15% cut.
I had to take a cut at my job. I mean,
yeah.
So yeah, I was fully like you said, I was expecting the NHL players to probably have to do the same. Obviously the game is, a little bit more dependent on revenue from TV and stuff like that than they are.
But I mean, still the amount of money that they get from actual fans at a game is still incredibly high.
Oh, absolutely. We used to have, my old bartending days, we used to have one of the accountants for the Illich family come into my bar as a regular. And he told me, back when this was back when the Wings were in the Western Conference, if that tells you how far back this is. But they said, against their rivals, the Chicago Blackhawks, they would make, between beer and merch sales and tickets for one game, they would make about $3 million in profit.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And so, I mean, that's the high end. Let's say the low end, you're making... The Red Wings are making $1 million and a half for a low end game,
right? And
so you go over the course of 40 games. That's a lot of money,
right? And we know now ticket prices have gone up a little bit. Sure. It costs a little bit more for a soda pop or a beer now. So yeah, those numbers have only just got even higher.
Yeah, and here we are. We agreed. I still can't believe that they agreed to 4 years and potentially 6. So that's a great thing, and I think that is exactly what the league needed. You're at 50-50. You've got everything. All the players really wanted was the Olympics.
Yeah, and escrow was a big talking part of it too.
Yes,
but
of course.
Yeah, the Olympics were such a huge thing because you got guys like Ovechkin now who can go in and play for their their country, and it really means something. I mean, the last Olympics where you had some of these guys go in and play for Russia and they won the gold, but did it really count? Because they weren't really technically Russia. They were this non-entity because they got caught cheating or whatever it was. And but I mean, you have a lot of, like we talked about in our last show with the top 10 Swedes, like the Sedins coming out, and they probably, enjoyed playing for their country to win that Olympic gold maybe more than they did to want to play for a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
And I imagine there's still a lot of players out there that, playing internationally and winning an Olympic for their country means just as much to them as it would be to win a cup.
Yeah, and it just means something different, right? Like it's almost like your job. You have your job, and then and of course the goal is to win the Stanley Cup. There's an aspect that's really fun about your job, I hope. And the Olympics are more like it's like your charitable event, but it's also that you're on a worldwide stage. And it's the best against the best, it's a different kind of vibe. And I know that we have the World Cup, but it definitely doesn't have the same level of across the board. Like, people will just watch something because it's the Olympics.
Right.
And I really do think that it's maybe unquantifiable for the league to go, what does it pay off for us to send our players? But I mean, ever since the league started sending their players, the league has grown exponentially since 1998.
Well, that's the thing. You get these NHL players going overseas, right? And now you have countries watching them. And so maybe some of your guys that, say in the KHL who are very, very, obviously there's not I don't want to say an abundance of talented players that could play in the NHL, but they have a lot of good players that could compete, and so maybe they're like, oh, well, maybe I'll look at the NHL because I see the level of talent that's over there.
Yeah.
Or, maybe, you've got younger guys that, didn't really know where they wanted to go, but now they can idolize some of these other players, get to watch them and see what it really is to play against some of these other guys.
And you also, you're playing, like, these next games are going to be in China, and now you've got this time zone difference. People in Canada and the U.S. that want to watch hockey are going to watch it. Like,
right.
We'll find a way to watch it, whether it's waking up at an ungodly hour or the games are just kind of at a mid-afternoon time. I don't know what, I don't know exactly.
Or I'm replaying them on my computer when I get up in the afternoon.
But those people in China that have the opportunity to go to those games and watch those games during prime time, it's a great way to grow the game.
Sure.
Bring in extra revenue for the game, which in turn just allows them for the game, I think, to get better.
Yeah, and in other countries too, like, neighboring countries like Japan and South Korea that are maybe trying to expand the game a little bit more, right? Now you've got the opportunity to view it because, again, that time zone difference where they're not going to stay up till 4 a.m. to watch NHL games or what have you, so.
And, maybe you can go and buy a knockoff jersey in China, too.
There you go.
For the team. I have a few of them. I think I have a Henrik Sedin knockoff Canucks jersey.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful. All right, well, that is our show for today. Let us know what you thought. Come follow us on Twitter at OT Hockey Talk, on Instagram as well. And Justin, any final words as we sign off?
No, none whatsoever.
A man of few words. We will talk to you guys soon.